Hi guys, my name is Jan Cherny, for those who don't know me. That actually makes maybe only the guy over there from Romania. I am a project manager and I actually work in CN for 5 years as a Scrum Master and leading some, I don't know, quite amount of projects already. I'm also extreme GoPro fan, so if you actually ever found me with this tiny camera, like walking around building and so on, that's actually your project manager. Who is that silly? Okay, today's topic. Actually, when Martin asked me to bring some topic, maybe also from less technical to be actually more like abstract and talk about projects and how we are doing it agile and so on, I was thinking how to do it. And I'm pretty sure that actually most of you are right now expecting some terminology, because it's actually going to be about agile from the PM, so it's actually going to be full of buzzwords. I know that actually I'm aware that you are aware of all those things. So my idea was quite different. I would like to actually let you a little bit stop and think about why we are doing a lot of things which actually you are aware, and what kind of impact does it have to your project. I named 5 things you can do to actually be happier in the project. And I hope that at the end of the presentation, you will find out that actually doing those things or helping doing them or helping your project manager doing them will make you more satisfied on the project. So, what is Agile? Usually, when somebody tells you about Agile, they tell you about, as minimum documentation, we can start without requirement, with minimum requirements, we can already start. When you have some iterative and incremental approach with all of these meetings like sprint planning and so on from, for example, Scrum methodology, then we have to be agile because, we are following those things. And when you have a Kanban board, either physical or some tool, then we have to be agile because we have a Kanban board. But actually, you can have all of these things and you don't have to be agile, because you are only following some principles, some good habits, but it's actually not only about that. So before going to those 5 tips from my side, let's just repeat some terminology, because maybe some of you are fresh to Agile and so on, and I'm going to use a lot of buzzwords which I want you to understand. So we have got some methodology from Agile, such as Scrum, Kanban, Discipline Agile, or Scrumban. Scrum is the most, I would say, widely used in general and also most widely used in here. Kanban is something like, okay, we have some priority list set by customer, and whenever we are done with task, we are just taking another one set by priority. So that's basically Kanban, and it's pretty, not only it's pretty, but it's pretty common on maintenance projects, for example. Discipline Agile delivery is actually something like, okay, we are doing Agile, but we are a little bit bigger company, and we want our projects to be, let's say, to have some checklist to follow. And actually, CN is a little bit experimenting with this, and maybe it's going to implement it very soon. And Scrumban is, something when actually following the whole Scrum methodology doesn't fit your project, and you would like to have a little bit wings to actually do things different. But again, I'm not going to talk about the terminology a lot. So we have got sprint. Sprint is something like an iteration. It's some kind of a time frame, like usually 2 weeks, during which your team commits to some tasks, and at the end present these tasks to the customer or product owner. Backlog is, let's say, some kind of a list of your tasks which you need to do during the milestone, during the project. Poker planning, we are going to talk about it a little bit more. It's some kind of it's a method how to do a group estimation, which you do usually on the beginning of project or beginning of milestone, or in the middle, it depends. Retrospective, it's a meeting which is usually at the end of the sprint or at the end of the milestone, which makes the team to sit down and a little bit think about, okay, what was done wrong, what was done good, but in a matter of, let's say, some action points. Again, we are going to talk about it. And we have got some roles in the team. We have got some product owner, that is the guy from usually on the customer side, who basically sets the priority for you. You have a team, let's say that's the development team, that's all you guys. And you have got Scrum Master, and sometimes actually people ask me, who is the Scrum Master? Because actually this, we are not a typical product company who would have a Scrum Master who would be basically used among more projects. But actually, Scrum Master is something like an impediment bulldozer. He's the guy who, whenever you don't have something working, it can be even I don't have a second display. Then you go there because he helps you to actually bulldoze those impediments. For example, that product owner is not responding. To explain the Scrum Master a little bit different, I actually once had a speech on Charles University about agile dating. So I would like to give you a little bit example of who is Scrum Master. If you would have a project to actually, get a girlfriend, and your sprint would be about actually, getting the girlfriend in a bar, then the Scrum Master would be something like Barney Stinson, who actually helps you with all of his knowledge and everything to actually bulldoze all those impediments in the bar. So now the final presentation. Sit down. I think Peter still has got some space on his fat boy. Peter is not fat boy. Don't sit on him, please. So 5 tips to apply in your project. Okay. So first of all, proper project face-to-face kickoff. It's not super related to Agile in general, but you have to understand that whenever you start a project, you actually have to define some things like what customer wants us to do, what are the requirements, what is the business goal, and a lot of other things like architecture. But actually, let's be honest, whenever there is a I don't know how many of you actually already been on some kickoff meeting of the project. Is there anybody who haven't? Okay, let's say 4 of you guys. So point is, from those who were there, you basically were not asked to actually prepare something. You just went there and you were, okay, maybe sometimes asking some questions, how do you want this feature done and so on. But actually you can use this face-to-face meeting much more to actually help to avoid some problems later. So again, as I said, usually you would say, okay, it's about getting some requirements. If you actually maybe are in the company a little bit longer, you know that you should ask about the business goal, business idea, why we are doing the project. And those like Tomáš would definitely make sure that they have good architecture defined. But again, there is much more. What about the definition of done? Definition of done is actually something which says when the user story is what needs to be done, that the user story can be marked as done. It is only implemented, or it is implemented, unit tested, code reviewed, and actually manually tested and accepted by a product owner. And if you don't have this actually defined, you can get into troubles, because at the end of the project, customer will say, but it was because you didn't define it, and customer will say, but it is normal that people do unit tests, and it's normal that they do it on 98%. So actually, you need to define what does it mean done. It also can be about Scrum meetings, like when we have Scrum meetings, how long is the iteration? You can define on the beginning like some project rules, some tools. Are we going to use Jenkins? Are we going to use some continuous delivery? Are we going to do code review? Do we have some code freeze? And all of those things will actually help you to avoid some problems. Other things can be, for example, localization. Many times people forget about out of scope definition. So what does it mean? What is in the scope of the project and what is not? Code reviews. If we are going to have a testing strategy, for example, how we are going to deal with some defects on production. Can we actually make the product and can we make the milestone if we are actually having some cosmetic bugs, or do we need to do everything? Technical debt. Usually you forget, guys, about technical debt and refactoring. Actually, you don't forget about it. You want that. You want to do refactoring, but you actually don't mention it on the beginning. And actually, on the beginning is the best time to set all these things, because actually customer will say, yeah, we need to do refactoring, it's actually good, habit, good habit. But when you will ask for it, actually, when you actually need it, when it's going to be something like third sprint already, the customer will say, oh, but you know, with refactoring, I don't have new features, and they will not like it. So actually, the beginning is the time when you can set nearly everything. It's the same thing as when you will actually come to a new company and you will set your own conditions. The beginning is the best time to set the conditions. It can be the same thing as supported devices and browsers, for example, for those who actually do some kind of web app which needs to be responsive. And also some lessons learned from previous projects. It's actually good to, when you have for example, already some project from with the customer in the past, to actually say what was done wrong in the previous project. Or maybe, I don't know, you were on some other project and you can say, well, in the previous company we had this problem, we should avoid it. It's actually also good. Just some tips for minimum what to do would be just do some, usually the backlog needs to be created by product owner, and that's without a doubt. But actually I give you a tip to actually go through the backlog together to understand all the user stories, why they are done and so on, and it's going to be a good basis for poker planning later. And revise the backlog together. Do the group estimation, which we are talking about later. Define the definition of done or acceptance criteria on the level of the project, and do some project cooperation setups, such as, I don't know, we are going to use Jenkins for continuous integration. We will have a code freeze every last day of the sprint at 3 o'clock, and blah 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 and so on. And don't leave the face-to-face meeting, which usually is like 3 days, without actually playing the first sprint, because the next day the first thing you can do is actually start on the project. Just a little bit more tips. User story format, as you know, should be like if the task will be in the user story format, you will reduce the aimless actually task definition. Don't forget actually about non-functional tasks, and this is basis for your later on estimation. You know, when actually somebody asks you for some high-level estimates, usually think about all the functionality. And you will say, okay, all the functionality is approximately 70 man days. That's nice, but you usually actually can forget about that we will have to do from time to time some refactoring and reduce the technical debt. And what about actually setting up the initial architecture? And the same thing is actually for setting up some tool, because if we actually agree to use Jenkins, but somebody needs to set up the Jenkins, somebody actually maybe needs to help customers to set up the Jenkins on their side, and stuff like that. And the typical thing is actually unit tests. When actually later on you will do the estimation, make sure that either the unit tests are part of the estimation of each task, or if you cannot do that, make sure that unit test has got some buffer in the estimation. And some Scrum ratio, because if you agree that you will have stand-ups every day, and you will have a review for 2 hours every sprint, and every sprint means 2 weeks, actually, usually it is approximately 1.5 man day of cost for all those Scrum ratio. And if you can imagine that you have a project for half a year, it is a lot of man days which piles up, and nobody will actually know that if you are late in the project, that actually it's because you forget to calculate this in the project. And I know that actually I'm saying all of this, which actually should be somehow, you know, my responsibility. But I am saying it to you because actually you all guys can think about it, because we are just only people and we can forget about it. And actually, yeah, but I will talk about it later. And the definition of done, this is some kind of an example how definition of done could look like. That means like coded, unit tested, and so on. Same as out of scope, that you will define which browsers actually are not supported. You know, if you will not define it, then customer will go to you and say, but you know, I want it also to work to have it working on Internet Explorer 6, and you will say, okay, but oh my God, nobody's using it. But actually, if you don't define it, then you are running into troubles. Okay, group estimation. Does everybody here know what actually poker planning is?
Yes.
Yes. And does actually, how many of you never did it? Don't be shy. Okay, 2 of you. Never mind. Actually, it's nothing related to poker. It's actually something like these actually cards which actually have got numbers which represent the Fibonacci scale. And the thing is actually pretty simple. You basically want to actually go task by task, define what is necessary to do within the task. So basically discussing the user story. You check actually the definition of that. Okay, so for this user story, we need to actually implement this and this and this. And we need to also include unit tests and this and this and this, what is part of the definition of that. And then in the third step, you actually do the first estimation. And the estimation is done in a way that actually everybody of you is holding the cards and pick pick independently one card which actually presents the estimate. I'm not going to go into deep what actually the number represents, if it is a mandate or something like that. But actually you pick a card and on 3, 2, 1 you show the cards. The thing is, this will actually help you to actually have some variety. Actually, the good example can be, again, on Charles University, we actually had during this agile dating presentation, we had an example of estimation, which was for how long is it going to take for a lady to prepare for a day. And you can imagine that actually the number really varied. You know, some guys said, okay, it's going to take 3 hours. One guy said it's going to take 30 minutes. This is really just not possible. And the thing is, actually, those different numbers helps actually in the fourth step, which is basically the discussion. The guy with the minimum number has to convince the guy with the highest number why this is so easy, and the guy with the highest number needs to explain to the guy with the lowest number why it is so simple. And the discussion is not only about getting accurate estimates. The discussion is actually about finding out that the guy who has the biggest number, actually overcomplicated, because actually a girl can go for a date without actually having her, I'm not sure, I'm not a girl, but without having shaved legs. Or maybe she can, but maybe the guy with the lowest number realized that actually taking a shower is not only one thing. Taking a shower means actually, you know, showering your hair and put some balsam on it, and I'm not sure what actually all you girls are using. So actually, they will later on define that the numbers may be somewhere in the middle. The fifth step would be actually the second round of the estimation, and not only those two people which were, let's say, fighting, were actually convinced each other, but actually their discussion convinced maybe the others in the part of the discussion. And if there will be still a difference, the higher number wins. So that's a little bit about basics. Most of you will actually ask me, like, is it really necessary and is it really worth it to actually do it? We can maybe, you know, give this estimation to Tomáš. He's a really skilled. He knows everything. He's going to do the estimation for us. And the answer is going to be pretty simple. Duh, it is. And I'm going to tell you why. You will not only get more accurate estimates, you will also actually identify what needs to be defined. Because, for example, when we are going to talk about login, customer only tells us there needs to be a login to the system, to the web application. But maybe actually we didn't define if the login will be via a normal form, or is there going to be some social media integration and stuff like that, because nowadays you can log in with a lot of other things. So actually you will, during the discussion, reveal what needs to be defined from the customer. You will definitely reduce misunderstandings, because the guy who actually overcomplicated the estimation will right now realize that actually this is out of scope, or this is part of another feature. And as well, as I said, it's an out of scope reminder, and as well it will reveal new features. While discussing, actually, I'm not sure, I'm not good with examples, but by discussing some feature, you will realize that you totally forget about registration form, for example. So, and actually, customer didn't define it in the backlog as well, but at the end of the project, he will want it, and it's going to be much easier to actually find it on the beginning. The same thing is actually, from a psychological point of view, it gives space to less assertive people. You can imagine that in the conversation in the team where Tomáš Vráček, Mojžíš, and Tomáš Mec will be. and then you will be there, or me, just normal people, you will actually face trouble to actually be part of the discussion, to say your opinion. By having these independent estimations, you actually help to these less assertive people to actually say their opinion. And actually, and that's my personal tip, it helps the customer, if you involve the customer in the group estimation, the global planning, to understand the estimates. Because, and this is really, I would say off the record, but we are streaming it, so it's not off the record. If you will come to the customer and you will say, this project is going to last 300 mandates, he's going to say immediately, no, it's too expensive, it's too expensive. But if you will come there and you will just discuss, okay, so let's do the group estimation. So this task, it will be, okay, and you estimate 1 mandate. This task is 14 mandate. And you will go one by one, and then you sum it up. And actually, because the customer was part of the estimation and he actually agreed with every single user story, he will understand why it is 300 mandates. Actually, he will not be able to actually anyhow doubt it, because he was part of the estimation. And sometimes, actually, he was the one who was the biggest pessimist there. So this is my personal tip, to actually involve the customer. Third thing, do not avoid retrospectives. Really. What is retrospective? I said it's some meeting when you actually discuss what was done bad, good, and so on. But the problem is, this meeting is actually a meeting of 3 mo's. Can anybody here guess what the 3 mo's are? That's the action points. But I mean generally, the meeting is 3 mo's, and the mo's will be mostly skipped, mostly screwed, but most important actually. Actually, not only here in CN, but I heard it from so many Scrum Masters I'm in contact with from other companies. The retrospectives are either basically skipped from time to time, or they are not only from time to time, but very often, or they are just screwed by only saying the question, typical question, is there anything which needs to be discussed? Is there any problem? Which actually doesn't help anyhow the team, and that's not how it should be done. But it's really most important, and I will tell you again why. One of the tips, I will just tell you the reasons a little bit later, but the tips for the retrospective will be, do it physical, don't do it only virtually. I know that sometimes we are having distributed teams and it's not easier, and of course in that case you just will basically use some virtual tool, but doing it physical and stop putting your computers down actually helps to really stop and thinking what actually is the situation. Because usually when you are in the middle of some development, you don't realize, like, you don't think about problems. You just focus on your task, and you don't focus on what can be done better. My biggest tip is, do not improvise. If you will just right now say, okay, we have a review, and right now let's do a retrospective immediately. Anybody, do you have any points? Father, do you have any points? Good, bad, no? Okay, let's go. Anybody else? It doesn't actually help. The 10 minutes is a very necessary thing. And if you will not have these 10 minutes, very likely Victoria will have only, let's say, 3 points, and she will mention all those problems because she's thinking about, okay, we should remove Skype because it's usually not working, and we should, start using Hangout. But actually, those 10 minutes will push you a little bit to go a little bit deeper in your mind and brainstorm, think about what can be improved. Action point format, don't only say, okay, this sprint I didn't like something. Say how to improve it, the starter or stopper or continuer. It should be action point. It should be something which is some kind of measurable, and next sprint you can actually say we did it or we didn't do it. Present one by one, because actually if you are only sticking everybody or saying those things, that doesn't help. It should basically be a meeting for 2 hours, and Lenka will get 1 point, stick it and explain it, and there will be discussion. So that don't try to push it to be as fast as possible. It's really important to actually get the steam out. It can, because retrospective doesn't have to be only technical. It can be interpersonal. Actually, there might be a problem between Badr and Jakub, and they need to talk about it, and they need to get the steam out. Do not criticize. all those actually 10 minutes will include also some ideas. And yes, maybe the ideas are unrealistic for our conditions, but just do not criticize. It was an idea, and maybe actually we will implement the idea 2 sprints later because there will be time for it. And basically write your points and check if they were done. Project managers should actually write all those points and make sure that actually next sprint they were implemented. Because what is actually very common behavior is that you think about so many good ideas, but you never make them reality. So this is a little bit pushing you to actually change that. And my personal tip actually what really helps is select some hero of the sprint. It's some kind of thing which actually helps to get the mood. I think it's never a bad time for actually saying that somebody was really good. And it doesn't matter if you actually select a Chuck Norris of the sprint, or if you basically are a group of gremlins who actually likes each other and don't waste time to say that Michal was the best guy of the sprint. Okay, you will ask me again, is it really important, is it really worth it? And the answer is, yeah. So, explanation in behind. Retrospective is thing where you actually have the time to stop and think, and it's necessary because usually we don't give each other this time for therapy. It's a therapy where actually the steams goes out. So whenever there is a tension from actually Jakub being not really happy about Lukáš, that he is not implementing those changes from code reviews and so on, or actually he's repeating the same thing, there needs to be some time slot where he has got the space to actually, tell it, to say it, as well as Lukáš to say why he didn't do it. Definitely, it's a meeting where actually ideas should be overcomplained. So it should not be about what was done bad. It should be about what can we do not to be bad. That's the action points. This 10 minutes helps to actually generate some creativity, new ideas. Don't forget about it. Actually, if you will really, and many actually customers pushes us to actually do it badly, to actually only talk about, okay, right now, immediately, do we have anything? This doesn't really help. So if actually customer is not willing to spend these 2 hours, at least internally within the project, try to make these bigger retrospectives from time to time. It's going to really make you happier. Because actually it's not only these 10 minutes, it will generate not only things which will solve the problems, but also improvement ideas. Yeah, and basically all of this will generate better environment, and better environment means happier you, and not only happier you, but also happier customer. Okay, fourth thing. I know that you're really a little bit tired already. So MVP, minimal viable product. Does it ring a bell? What is it? Have you ever heard it? Okay, everybody for sure. But I'm not sure if everybody actually is doing it. It's not actually a thing which is coming from Lean. It's thing which is coming from from Agile. It's coming from Lean, and it means that actually for building your nice project and whatever it is, you can define something like minimum necessary features which will actually help to get some pilot, which you can give to the customer to actually get the first feedback. And all of us actually, I think, have a tendency to be, perfectionists, and we will not give this, sooner before actually our car will have, all those, not only a steering wheel, but it will have all those mirrors and other things. But actually, car can be shown to the customer if it is actually a good fit and if it rides well even without the mirrors and stuff like that. It's usually explained on some examples such as donuts. You can actually show the customer the donuts is the filling and try the taste even without having the cover, as well as you can start doing your first desserts by cupcake and not starting with the wedding cake, as well as this really weird example. And as well as, and this is actually the most typical one, with actually try the skateboard idea of actually whenever you will need some transportation, whatever, then you can start with actually this transporting from only which goes like forward or backwards, and then something which has got something with steering, and finally gets to the car. So, minimum viable product approach actually helps us not to do something which is going to end up in a waste bin. Because if you will spend, I don't know, really 3 sprints not showing customer actually, I don't know, logging feature again, for example, because you are not happy with it, then actually you will see that you actually all the time went like really to the bad direction. And you could know all of this if you would do the necessary minimum, which you will show to the customer. And maybe not only to the customer, but customer wanted to show it to their customers, to the end users. And they will show that actually even customer were wrong. So the minimum viable approach is the incremental approach, is the building necessary minimum. It pushes the team to actually to stick with the basic scenarios, to the very important one, and it helps to actually gather the feedback from the customer or from the end users really soon. And the point is, usually, why we are all doing this? I think all of you guys maybe got on the project which was not running according to some estimates. You know, you had some estimates, even you did poker planning on the beginning. You were doing everything right. You did actually face-to-face meeting with all those things which I told you. Still, you will not meet the estimates. Customer will be okay with not having everything done, but they will not be okay with not having everything what is core. So actually, if you will focus on the core things from the very beginning, and maybe even convince the customer to leave the login functionality where it is, because actually, user can log into the system, but we don't have this social media integration feature, and rather focus on some things without which it's not going to be actually deployable. So actually, this is the thing which I ask you to ask yourself whenever you're doing a project. Fifth thing and the last thing, so dedicated product owner. Something which is actually not that easy to actually somehow, to anyhow affect from your side. But I'm going to tell you how actually dedicated or bad product owner can affect all your lives. So dedicated product owner can be some kind of this hero. That's basically that's the ideal case, and that's the guy who actually attends all the coordination meetings. Anytime you want, he answers your questions, or at least on, let's say, daily basis. So whenever you're stuck, you can ask. He's the guy who gets feedback from the stakeholders or from the end users, and he's the one who sets the priority. So whenever you need something, basically he's the guy who sets the priority and he's there for you. That's the ideal case, but many times there are bad product owners, and they have got very negative effect, such as that actually if they are not behaving well, they increase the risk of misunderstandings, because you as a developer, when you don't have the answers, you actually still committed to something during the sprint, and you know that you need to finish it, and when you need to finish it, you start assuming, and when you start assuming, you start going actually maybe wrong, maybe not, but maybe yes. It can slow down the development very rapidly, actually, by waiting for the customer, by assuming, by correcting things. And yeah, that's the thing, pushes the team to assume. And all in all, actually, it's increased the efforts and the costs. And and it also increased attention in the project. And my advice to you guys is that actually, yes, all of those things maybe project manager should solve, but tell it to the project manager, because you are in the daily communication with the product owner that these kind of things is happening. Because there needs to be some kind of a documented way by how this guy is behaving, and we maybe needs to step in and discuss it with our customer, because nobody at the end of the project, when you will actually not meet the deadline, you will not be according to the estimates. Nobody will remember that it's the impact of the product owner. And believe me, like continuously not responding product owner actually will increase the efforts. But nobody from the customer will admit it if you don't have this kind of thing documented. So tell us. I will basically summarize the agile mistakes in a nutshell and just go with some other. So underestimating the kickoff meetings. All of you guys who will be there on the kickoff meeting, try to think about some of those tips which I gave you. Try to think about some of the things which actually nobody is asking you. Not only the architecture, not only the business goal, but things like out of scope things like definition of done. It is a good idea to be proactive. So there's the missing definition done, less active or missing product owner, better retrospective, as we said, forgetting about MVP, and also long stand-ups. Actually, BMW is a good example. Actually, with BMW team, we sometimes had, maybe also because of me, actually, we had stand-ups which are actually 30 minutes long rather than 15 minutes. So actually, we started implementing some things to actually help us, which was, for example, one leg stand-up. Everybody was on one leg for those 15 minutes. And actually, it pushes the others to actually to really reduce their speech to minimum, because there are only 3 things you need to answer: what I started working on, sorry, what I did yesterday, if I walked, and what I'm going to work on now. And this all helps just to reduce the possible misunderstandings and to raise the hand in case you have some problem. But on the other hand, sometimes you don't have stand-ups at all, which is actually an effect of poor communication. And it can happen that actually if you don't have stand-ups at all, that actually Yuri and Kate will start working on the same task because they actually not only poor communicate, but they don't actually update the TFS or whatever they are using at all. So be careful with those extremes. Not involving customers or stakeholders, that's actually not involving customers to the review. Some projects don't have reviews at all, and that's actually a problem because not receiving the feedback regularly, as I told you, actually creates a problem. And stakeholders, because actually you should push your customer or product owner to involve the end users and stakeholders, those actually who are going to pay all of this. So that's another thing as a typical mistake. And missing visualization. I know that you guys don't like all those metrics, those burn down charts, those lot of things, and visualize deadlines and PowerPoint things and all those things which we have to do. But actually, it's good to know if we are meeting the deadline. It's good to know it even if you are in the 3rd sprint from 13th sprint. It's good to know. What is the next necessary deadline? And I know that you have it somewhere in the Word document from the face-to-face first initial kickoff meeting, but it's good to have it somewhere visualized to actually have some kind of reminder, because we are only people and we focus on so many important things during the day that actually we tend to forget. Some single facts, which is only for your information. We have got overall like 50 running projects in parallel right now. And I don't know how many we finished during all those many years. 95% of them are actually not using waterfall, which means they are actually agile. I didn't say that they are agile because not all of them are actually agile. But I mean that I would not mark it as agile. Code review process, which is, I think, a really important thing on the project when you have got more than one team member. It's actually only on every 5th project. So try to think if on your project there is no code review, if it is a good thing or if it is actually only because you didn't have time to think about it. TDD, like test-driven developments, only on every 10th, which means that let's say only 5 projects here has got a TDD process, which starts with writing unit tests first and then writing the functionality. Again, it's not that you have to have it, but it's a good habit. Try to think about if it is good or not. Average team here has got like 4 people, which is pretty maybe obvious. And average sprint has got 2 weeks. That would be average. Most distributed team would have 6 locations for 10 members. I had this team once in the past, and it is not easy. Distributed team in general, when you have got somebody in Zlín and somebody in Prague, somebody in Bratislava, it's really not easy. But when you have a really distributed team, my only tip would be just to focus. Actually, you don't have to do anything special. sometimes you need to actually implement, maybe to use some tools. But my suggestion would be more strict about all those 5 rules I told you. More strict. There are no excuses. Maintenance team, whoever is on a maintenance project, usually tends to not to have Scrum and to have sprints and so on, but to have Kanban. You basically have some sorted list from which you are picking every time when you are done. Yeah, DAD, basically, CIR is right now experimenting with this DAD approach, and we are trying to set some checklists so that we as project managers will make sure that we not forget anything. We have got pretty good results with Agile testing. I'm not sure how many, but I think at least 3 or 4 projects already have got Agile testing concept, which is something I can tell you about if you will be interested. I can tell you about after the presentation, but I don't want to waste the time. Distributed teams have got good results, and as good results as the normal teams. That's actually another thing that actually many people say, and actually Agile manifesto says that Agile can be on a team which is collocated, but actually you don't have to have a collocated team. Nowadays it's normal that you have a distributed team and a team. And we have got some university experience, actually not only me, but Lukáš, Marek, in the future, Jiří Urban in Zlín, we are going to actually have some lectures about Agile and some leading of the projects on universities, so don't be keen to ask in case you will have something, because if we are able to teach it, then we have to know it for sure. Okay, summary time. So you are saying that actually I didn't tell you anything new. I know that I didn't tell you anything new. I know that you all know about proper planning and about retrospectives and stuff like that. But actually my question is, are you really doing it? Are you really doing it properly? And don't answer, but actually try to think about it, because actually your usual excuse would be, but PM should tell us to do it. You don't have to wait for PM to do it. You can actually do many things by your own, and you can actually maybe a little bit push things by your own. Like, Jan, why don't we actually do the thing which you actually showed us on the presentation? And I'm pretty sure that PM, in case it's going to be possible, will implement it. Another excuse would be, but customer, we cannot change it. The customer pushes us to do it this way. And yes, some projects unfortunately are not ideal, and they are pushing us to go a little bit, different direction. But believe me, all in all, customers, all of you, the customer loves all of you. And actually, if you will say, we would really like to actually do proper retrospectives, very likely they will listen to you. So my 3 last sentences, be proactive and don't wait for anybody else to actually start to initiate something. Actually, it's going to really help you at the end. Customer likes you and appreciates your opinion, so don't be keen to actually ask the customer to actually start doing something which you heard here or which you read in some book. Have a transparent mindset and avoid the problem. Try to think 3 steps ahead, which means that on the beginning of the project, really try to think about what everything can go wrong, what needs to be defined, what needs to be written, because it's going to save not only my ass, but it's going to save all of us asses, because it's, okay, I'm here online, so sorry for that. So back to the question, what is Agile? Agile is not, you can have all of those, things from those methodology set, and still you're not going to be Agile. Agile is about you communicating enough according to how project needs it, and communicate well, to be able to change. And change means according not only the retrospectives, but be able to, customer will change their mind, it's normal. And I know that you will be very angry that actually you spend 2 weeks implementing something which you can put in the basement, but be ready for the change. And be ready for actually continuously improve yourself. Don't stick. I know that you will be on the project for half a year and you have got some good habits and you are okay with that. Every day you should ask yourself what to do better and not stick with the same behavior. So actually, David Janota will kill him because he hates this word, but Agile is a mindset. It's you. It's in your head. And so Agile is not about methodologies. Agile is actually about your behavior, guys. And I'm pretty sure that actually we are doing Agile in most of the projects somehow okay-ish, just because actually we are picking people like you with those mindset. So I said that actually, I promised that I will tell you 5 tips what you can do actually to be happier on the project. And I told you only some tips on Agile, whatever. But actually, my message should be, or will be, if you will implement those things, you will very likely implement things which will improve the good mood in the team. And good mood means happier you. As well, I will I recommend it to you some things which will improve the planning or which will improve what not to forget on the beginning. But actually, if you will do a better estimation, you will very likely actually implement maybe the project on time or sooner, which will make you heroes, and make you heroes makes you happier. And as well, actually, um, um, if you will actually avoid some problems by defining them or by actually reporting the product owner is not doing good things, you will very likely avoid some potential, because if the problem is not delivered on time, there are some blames actually which are caused by misunderstandings, blames which are right now usually put on us, and the blames are actually very likely going to make you unhappy, and unhappy you is not happy you. So that's my message. Happier you by those 5 things. Thank you very much. Any questions? Did I use more? I use more. I'm sorry.
Actually,
that's me. Thank you.